Just in, Carmelo Anthony's $1 million bond has been reduced to $250,000 after he allegedly stabbed 17-year-old Austin Metcalf in the heart for grabbing him. Anthony's Give Send Go fundraising campaign is currently at $415,000. Anthony's parents testified at the hearing where they revealed that he was the captain of the football and track team. He worked at Foot Locker for 2 years and was the oldest of 3 siblings. During the hearing, prosecutors revealed that there was a separate altercation involving Anthony on February 4 at school. The family said they don't have access to the Give Send Go money, explaining that it isn't as simple as giving a phone call to access it. If released, Anthony will be placed on house arrest.
The sad part about it is he died in his brother's arms. They were twins, identical twins. And his brother was holding on to him, trying to make it stop bleeding. And he died in his brother's arms. And I rushed up there, and I saw him on the gurney. And I could tell. They said he wasn't breathing. I could see all the blood. I saw where the wound was. I'm not trying to judge, but what kind of parents did this child have? What was he taught? He brought a knife to a track meet, and he murdered my son by stabbing him in the heart. The guy was in the wrong place. They asked him to move, and he bowed up. This is murder.
Alright, before I go too hard on this, many lives, let's be honest, many lives have been ruined right now. I'm sure Anthony's family is absolutely devastated, and rightfully so. And so is Austin's. I mean, it's not like his parents raised him to stab people in the chest. This is not something parents do. I mean, I don't know. I hope so. But given common sense, I really doubt that's what happened. Well, I mean, if common sense were really so common, Anthony wouldn't have sacrificed Austin and his own life for such a retarded reason in the first place. So, I really don't know what to think anymore. I really doubt that Anthony's mom was like, okay son, if anybody fucks with you, stand your ground and offer them to the gods. I don't think this is what happens in real life. I really don't. So according to the police report, Austin had told Anthony that he needed to move out from under their team's tent. And Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, touch me and see what happens. No one really thought Anthony really had any weapons in his bag. And Austin proceeded to touch Anthony anyway. And then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what witness recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and ran away. So let me get this straight. You stab someone in the chest over a seat. A seat? In what world does any sane person do something like this? The biggest question you need to be asking is, why didn't he just leave? Why did he have to stay and threaten the guy? Why didn't Austin call security to remove him? Why didn't Anthony just remove Austin's hand from his person, and perhaps verbally assault him or use his hands? Why the knife? And I think everyone knows why. Anthony wanted to wield his perceived power. He wanted to wield his perceived power over another individual. It's really that simple. Because power is status. He wanted to exert that power because power unused is power wasted. He did it for the social currency it provides. He did it for ego. Like, let's be real here. And I don't think it's necessarily 100% his fault either. I think both Austin and Anthony are victims. At the same time, both of them are wrong. And I'll explain why after we go through the police report. So another witness says, I asked him what happened, and he stated they were all sitting on the bleachers under a Memorial HS tent when another male, who he did not know, walked over and sat under the tent. And you want to know what the number one problem is when you make this about race? Is both camps are using these two people, who are victims, by the way, of the system, as mascots, parading them around like they're heroes and villains, the oppressed and the oppressor of their race. No! To these people, race is everything and actions mean nothing. And that's why America is farther now from getting rid of racism than it was 20 years ago. Speed going to China, I would argue, did more for getting rid of stereotypes and building relationships with actual people of America and China than any project in recent history. The black folks shouting race issue are hurting their own cause by defending Anthony's actions as a self-defense. They're saying it's okay to kill over a petty dispute if you feel disrespected, which just feeds into the stereotype of black kids as dangerous, when they're not. That's not justice, it's sabotage. On the flip side, the white folks calling Anthony a savage are just as bad. They're ignoring that Austin escalated by grabbing him. Both sides are hypocrites, cherry-picking facts to dunk on each other. The truth? 2 teenagers fucked up, and race doesn't change that. The reality is, both are wrong, and both are victims. So victims of who? The school system. This isn't a race issue. Anybody who's making it a race issue on both sides is absolutely retarded, delusional, and are pushing their own agendas, not for the sake of Anthony or Austin, but for the sake of some grandiose mission. This is a systems issue, and in the general sense, there are 2 reasons why this has happened. Will happen in the future, and will continue to happen at an increasing rate if not solved. Number 1 is the severe lack of extreme personal accountability. I like to say that reputation is always a good indicator of future action. And Anthony definitely had a reputation.
Meanwhile, here at Centennial, students shocked about what happened, that one of their classmates could be charged with such a serious offense. One girl that we spoke with knew Anthony pretty well, that she says, and told us this.
I'm in shock because it's like, I wouldn't expect that from him. I only know him fighting and stuff, like, you know, but to take someone's life is just like a different level.
Well, to boil it down, Anthony was saying clear as day, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. He was shouting, in fact. And when he finally does it, everybody's surprised. The kid should have been removed from school as soon as he started acting up. Imagine you have a dog shelter and that one dog, his name is Scrappy, is especially violent, constantly posturing, growling, biting, being aggressive. And you're going to wait until that dog kills another dog? Bites one of the staff? Mauls a child who's visiting? I hope not. You're going to take that dog, separate it, train it, and if all's well and good, reintegrate it into the shelter. It's the exact same thing. Nobody wants to put Scrappy down because of something that's no fault of his own. And so it comes back to the saying, the problem isn't that Johnny can't read. The problem isn't even that Johnny can't think. The problem is that Johnny doesn't know what thinking is. He confuses it with feeling. How would Anthony know what he's doing is wrong if the system allows him to do it over and over and over again without any punishment? So number 1, if 2 kids at your school started a physical fight, they should both get expelled. It doesn't matter who started it. It doesn't matter who threw the first punch. It doesn't matter who finished it. Both of them should be expelled from the school because otherwise, what kind of message does it send? The message that sends is that you can get into fights and it doesn't really matter. There's no punishment. That means for people who have a culture where strength matters, power matters, status matters, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, now you have a system that basically incentivizes people to use that power because it's positive reinforcement. And don't be surprised when more students partake in it, because nobody's going to lie there while they get beaten unconscious. You create a breeding ground for violence. If there were no laws, if defund the police were an actual thing, what you're basically saying to everyone is, it's a free-for-all. It really is this simple. If the only punishment for fighting is suspension for a couple of days, that's not even a punishment, that's a vacation. People like Anthony need to be put in a safe place, special education, for his safety, for his fellow students' safety, and for the safety of every person he will meet in the future. The other day I saw a video of a kid getting his head stomped in while teachers watched. Well, no, they didn't really watch, just watch. They were saying, please stop, please stop, please stop, because that's going to help at all. Because the rule book said that teachers can't interfere with fights because of legal actions. And while that is true in some states, you have a potential murder going on right in front of you and you're not going to do anything? I thought teachers were supposed to be for the betterment of students. And so this creates a false sense of power. People go back to the good old society where force And the ability to exert that force on your fellow man means you're right, because it doesn't matter if you're wrong or right when the other person is dead. We don't live in archaic times anymore. That way of doing things is no longer acceptable. But that's exactly what you're telling people, like Anthony, when you allow them to use violence as a means of social currency. The second problem that's creating the situation is optics. Because once people start ejecting students because of what we just talked about, you're going to get attention, and lots of it. And not the good kind, mind you. People are going to call you racist, call for foul play, it's unfair, I deserve a second chance, boo-hoo. And you know what I'd say to them? Fuck off. Once you let optics make your decisions for you, you become extremely superficial. All decisions you make are dictated by public perception. Not by what is right for the majority of the population, but what is right for the loud minority. People don't want to be called racist. I don't want to be called racist. Nobody wants to be called that. It's detrimental to anybody's life to be called that. You can get fired from your job. Your friends and family will distance themselves from you. Everything and every door available to you will close. No company, no one wants to associate their own reputation with a racist, with a sexist, or with a Nazi. It's just common sense. But if you allow these words, if you allow these words that hold little meaning, when everyone's just throwing them out for the sake of discrediting someone, when you use these words as a weapon instead of how they were actually designed, you let assholes win. You let people without any principles take over. I cannot stress enough the consequences Anthony will face because of the school's inability to perform hard actions for the sake of looking good and feeling good. So now, what does the solution look like? I don't think that it's necessarily his parents' fault that he's like this, because I think most parents wouldn't want their kids to go to jail. And most parents wouldn't want their kids to commit murder. The people who I think should take extreme individual accountability, however, is every single person in that school administrative system. Every single person who had a hand in making policy that oversees student regulation. Extreme personal accountability. They need to be fired ASAP or resign. As soon as you do this, every single school in America will follow suit. Make an example of them, conduct a public hanging of their reputation, send a clear message that stupid policies that put minors in danger, wherever that danger comes from, is not allowed in America. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what color skin you are, it doesn't matter what gender you are. If you are a problematic person that has proven in the past that you are prone to violence and endangering the lives of everyone, including you, you need to be taken out of society and kept in a safe place. The biggest problem of accountability, especially in high-level executive positions, is it can be the end of your whole career if you admit you're wrong. Imagine you're a president and you send thousands of men to fight a war. They die. Their families mourn. At the end of it, you say, oopsie, we actually didn't need to fight that war. My bad. That is not something most people will ever be able to say. And there will be 1,000 self-rationalizations why you shouldn't. So in this case, don't let them choose. Get rid of them. Violence isn't a game. People get sent to jail for this. If administrators faced real consequences for their actions, they'd do something about it. But like now, everyone is ignoring the real problem. The systemic problem. Force everyone to stop coddling bad behavior. Regardless of age and regardless of whatever character you have. Right now, the system rewards ignoring problems until someone dies. And so another thing you have to consider is there are levels to everything. People don't necessarily go from level 1 to level 10. You don't go from Winnie the Pooh into turning into Ghostface from Scream. That's just not what happens. Virtue signaling turns into policies that turn aggressors into victims. Soft language diffuses accountability. Culture promotes sex, drugs, and violence. Playing the race card or labeling someone racist every single time that there's a disagreement. And you getting away with that because nobody wants to be called a racist. Nobody wants to be called a Nazi because that's a detriment to their own career. That's why they call it character assassination and defamation. Right? Instead of attacking the argument, you're attacking the person and discrediting the person. The diffusion of accountability in the system where nobody knows what's going on or who's in charge because there are so many bureaucratic systems that are preventing anyone from pinpointing any single person as the cause of everything. Everything that I've mentioned leads up to our present, where the average person thinks it's okay to use violence as soon as they get hit. even by a little gust of wind. The biggest issue is in that Anthony Metcalf stabbed Austin. It's done. It's finished. The biggest issue is that in his head, he was justified in doing so. And so the biggest question now is, where did he get that idea? And it's plain as day to anybody why that happens. The school told him, you can get into as many fights as you want. You're not going to get punished. Did his parents tell him as well? I don't know. I hope not. His friends probably told him it's alright, because that's the social currency it provides. And let's be real, rap culture doesn't promote good morals and right conduct. Hugging your problems out, that's not reality. And sure, yes, somebody will argue, oh, it promotes self-expression, storytelling. Well, when that story comes from the hardships of the hood, which is incredibly valid, by the way, it just doesn't. And so when you have people you look up to who went through what is essentially gangster life, it's an exciting life, let's be honest. But I can say the same thing about being a soldier and going to war, fighting for the good cause. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm not risking my life for politics. And so a lot of the times, it promotes some degree of fighting against power, which can imply violence. And when you have a combination of that and a system that says do whatever you want, you get people like Anthony Karmelo, who to no surprise, will eventually do what he did. If there was less people who would surrender to the race card, if there were less people who would surrender to the race card, to the sexist card, and people who would actively use these free optics, you would have less people like this today. If you had accountability for everyone who determines the policy and how people act, who determine the incentives and punishments for the bottom up, from the time the kids leave the mother's womb, meaning the parents to the school, to the policies enacted once you're an adult, you would have less of these people around. And 100%. And 100% you're going to have people rely on the race card because it's worked so well for them in the past. And it's going to work so well for them in the future because people are adverse to conflict. And that's just a natural fact of life. I'm adverse to conflict. You're adverse to conflict. Every single person here is adverse to conflict. I mean, that's the whole reason why you have the saying, happy wife, happy life. If I want something, if I want someone to do something for me, to see my point of view, I don't call them stupid or retarded because who knew? Calling them a retard wouldn't get them on your side. To sum it up, of course, there are problems like culture, but you can't change culture. And I wouldn't ever want to tell somebody, or anybody, what's good or bad for their culture. That's none of my business and it shouldn't be anybody else's. Especially not a third party. What you can change are the rules and regulations that keep people safe. And before anyone says, oh, he's calling for segregation, racist, go fuck yourself. If you feel society is getting crazier and crazier, there are more crackheads on the street, how do you solve that? You get rid of the crazies. That's it. Doesn't matter what skin color you have. You can be black, white, yellow, brown, or any color of the rainbow. Get them out of here. Put them in a safe place. Show them there's a better way. Rehabilitate them. And then if they're good, release. AKA, they can take a vacation in mental asylums. There are many reasons why people become like this. Economic reasons, indoctrination, cultural reasons, circumstantial reasons. It's not always their fault, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there are consequences for everybody's actions. So what's done is done. There are ripple effects of what's going to happen when you promote the narrative of racial wars. People will become more radicalized against other races, and the people getting called racist will actually become racist. So imagine, you know what? You keep saying I'm racist. Maybe I will be racist. Anthony's both a piece of shit and a victim. He chose a knife over words. Austin made an idiotic move when he touched someone who threatened him. He chose hands over patience. The real crime is the adults who let this get this far. Schools that don't punish, parents who don't listen to their children, and a culture that promotes power. Nothing is going to change. It's not Anthony's fault he's like this, and 100% he should be tried for murder. But he's 17. He doesn't know shit at 17. At 17, all I did was wake up, go to school, go home, play League of Legends. That's all I did. I didn't know shit. And I think most 17-year-olds are in the same boat. The biggest problem most of these 17-year-olds will ever have to deal with is when their Wi-Fi goes out during comp. 17 is old enough. Yes, absolutely. But they're not 18. They're not 20, 25, 30. What the fuck does a 17-year-old know? Like, what are we even talking about here? If you disagree or agree with anything I said, let me know. I'd like to read some of your thoughts. Make sure to sub. Let's talk more in the next video.